If you feel weary or lost in the mundane days, pause for a moment and stay with this video. You may quietly find the peace and the answer you've been searching for. When ethereal light filters through the forest mist and divine rays pierce the clouds to cascade upon the earth, the world takes on a gentle shape, revealing a quiet sanctuary where the soul can rest. Within our own lives, a similar beam of light exists. It dwells in the spiritual realm, woven by language. Today, let us explore a theme both gentle and profound: the beauty that exists within our lives. Poetic grace. It all begins with the Shawshank Redemption. Why did Andy Dufresne ultimately choose to flee to Zihuatanejo, living out his days in anonymity, rather than using his brilliant mind to conquer the financial world once again? Because he knew Shawshank was never just a physical prison. It was an invisible, institutional cage. If he had returned to the Vanity Fair, his immense talent would simply become a tool for others to exploit once more. He might have escaped the stone walls, but the invisible shackles of capital and expectations would have imprisoned him for life. Therefore, Zihuatanejo is never just a coastal landscape. It is an incredibly rare state of being. Andy went to that beach just to be an ordinary man. No labels, and no longer needed by anyone. During his 20 years in prison, everyone clung to his intellect. But eventually, we all learn this truth. Being needed is always a gentle shackle. Your talents, your indispensability, are often not your armor, but the very cage that traps you. On the shores of Zihuatanejo, he holds the right to not use his talents. This seemingly useless relaxation is the rarest spiritual freedom. A true prison break is the awakening of the soul. Because in truth, every one of us lives inside an invisible Shawshank. We are slowly institutionalized by reality, trading freedom for stability, living as involuntary cogs in the machine. We all want to escape, but the laws of the world do not allow everyone to simply vanish into the wild. So what, then, is the ultimate meaning of this film? It presents a life choice almost unattainable in reality, yet makes us feel it so deeply. It offers an alternative possibility for our mundane lives, giving us a glimpse of the beautiful way life was truly meant to be. Perhaps true freedom is never about tearing down all the walls around us. It is about being inside the walls, yet still guarding our inner peace and perceiving the beauty of life. Andy once said, "Hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things." This hope is a state of life that transcends worldly gains, and the vessel that carries it is exactly our theme for today: poetic grace. It grants us, amidst our mundane days, another spiritual dimension to rest our souls. Now, let us travel back over 800 years in time and begin our journey gently with the classic poem by the Persian mystic Rumi. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. In truth, this field beyond right and wrong is exactly the Zihuatanejo in Andy's heart. That vast field is never a physical landscape found in the mortal world. It is a spiritual sanctuary, free from the obsession of right and wrong, freed from the shackles of identity. Here, there are no disputes of right and wrong, no weighing of gains and losses, and no labels or halos bestowed by the secular world. This was Andy's original intention in letting go of vanity and resolutely heading to the sea, to find a resting place for the soul and anchor his truest self. Rumi also left behind another profoundly mesmerizing proverb: "What you seek is seeking you." What exactly are we seeking? And why is that thing seeking us? Perhaps we can find the answer within Rumi's spiritual world. In Rumi's philosophy, life exists in two states: the illusory false self, known as Nafs, and the authentic true self. What is this illusory false self? It is rooted in the delusions of the human mind. Entangled by thoughts, emotions, and past memories, we personally weave a set of secular identities and desires, treating these fictional narratives as our true selves. Fame, gains, and losses, the judgment of others, worldly success and failure, are all cages built by this false self. The reason humanity is trapped in suffering stems precisely from this dualistic perspective. We cling to gain and loss, honor and disgrace, strength and weakness. From our prejudiced perceptions, we forcefully construct a tense, hypocritical reality, constantly demanding from the outside world. But when a sudden awakening arrives, and we see that all of this is merely a delusional story woven by the mind, this cage, dependent on external circumstances, will quietly collapse. Dismantling this dualistic cognition, letting go of discrimination, and dissolving worldly attachments is what Rumi called fana, the annihilation of the self. Only by shedding this illusory shell and embarking on the journey back to our authentic selves can our inner divinity awaken. That is a realm beyond gain and loss, the vast field of Rumi. At this point, the phrase, "what you seek is seeking you," finds its ultimate answer. What you are pursuing is never a distant external destination. It is the authentic self that you have forgotten. If you grasp this secret, it becomes brilliantly clear. Everything you have been desperately seeking is simply yourself. Through his poetry, Rumi offers an alternative possibility for ordinary lives, opening up a spiritual sanctuary for us amidst the cramped reality. This is a kind of poetic grace, and this poetic grace is precisely the most profound beauty in our lives. In truth, the beauty of life has always been there. Rumi used poetic grace to open an eye for us, allowing us to peel away the illusion and see the authentic soul. This poetic grace is the eye that discovers the beauty of life. It is the greatest spiritual resonance of humanity in our search for meaning. It transcends race, transcends culture, because whether in the East or the West, the essence of life is the same, and the forms of its beauty are deeply connected. But what if there is another way to look at life? Imagine for a moment, what if we didn't have to fight to overcome our anxiety, but instead allowed anxiety to completely lose its form of existence? Wouldn't life become profoundly pure and beautiful? With this question in mind, let us cross the ancient Silk Road, traveling all the way east to China over 1600 years ago. The Eastern Jin poet Tao Yuanming used a different eye, the eye of nature and the cosmos, to completely redefine how life exists. Today, through his immortal poem. We will complete this dialogue across millennia. Listen to how he begins. Jielu zai renjing, wu che ma xuan. I build my hut in the realm of men, yet hear no clamor of carriages and horses. This is fascinating. The poet says, I built my house right in the bustling crowd, yet I hear none of the world's noise. In modern terms, I live in the most crowded downtown, but my mind resides in a deep, silent forest. How did he do it? He gives us the answer in the next line. Wen jun he neng xin yuan di zi pian. You ask me how this can be. When the heart is far, the place naturally feels remote. As long as your heart distances itself from the thirst for fame and worldly entanglements, no matter how crowded the city you physically inhabit, your world will naturally become secluded and peaceful. Look, isn't this exactly Andy's prison break-in place? This distance is not physical. It is the psychological distance that cuts off the invisible shackles of secular gains. When the heart is far from the world, what does it draw near to? Nature. And so, we have the most absolute line of Eastern aesthetics. Chai ju dong li xia, yu ran jian nan shan. Plucking chrysanthemums beneath the eastern fence, leisurely I catch sight of the southern mountain. The verb here, jian, catch sight of, is absolutely brilliant. It is not gaze or look, because gazing implies a deliberate purpose, a tense, anxious demanding from the outside world. But to catch sight of is an accidental encounter. When you lower your head to pluck a chrysanthemum and casually look up, the distant mountain simply embraces you. This is the ultimate relaxation, a perfect fusion of man and nature, with all defenses entirely stripped away. And in this casual glance, shan qi ri xi jia, fei niao xiang yu huan, the mountain air is beautiful at sunset. Flying birds return together. No extravagant words, only the purest joy of existence. Then, the poet leaves us with a final mystery. Qi zhong yu zhen yi, yu bian yi wang yan. In this, there is a true meaning. I want to explain it, but have forgotten the words. There is a profound, true meaning hidden in this picturesque scene. But the moment he tries to explain it, he finds that any language is hopelessly pale and redundant. So, what is this unspeakable, true meaning? To solve this mystery, we must re-examine the very nature of human existence. Human beings are actually a dual existence. First, we are a social existence. In the web of society, we have honor and disgrace, success and failure. When we frantically chase these external goals, life is often distorted, breeding deep anxiety and absurdity. Think about it. Isn't this exactly what the Persian mystic Rumi called the illusory false self, the Nafs? Secular labels and social relations forge this tense cage of dualism. But we must never forget, humans are also an existence of nature and the cosmos. Through his life and poetry, Tao Yuanming traced back to another possibility of life. Human beings can actually exist, like a blade of grass or a tree among all creations. At least in our spiritual space, we hold this undeniable right. When we strip away our social attributes and completely merge our spirit into nature, becoming part of the cool breeze, the distant mountain, the flying birds. Will you still worry about your promotion? Will you still agonize over how others judge you? No, because in this dimension, the anxieties of the social man completely lose their form of existence. You cannot measure the success of a tree, nor can you judge the honor or disgrace of a cloud. This is Tao Yuanming's true meaning. When Tao Yuanming in the eastern fields turned his soul into a carefree chrysanthemum, he actually met Rumi, who stood in the western Persian fields beyond right and wrong, at the very pinnacle of the human spirit. Merging the self into nature is exactly the dissolving of the secular false self to reclaim the authentic, true self. Of course, we don't actually need to quit our jobs and flee into the deep mountains. The greatest value of this poem and this poetic grace is that it provides a vast sanctuary within our minds. As long as you hold this poetic grace in your heart, even in a noisy concrete jungle, your soul can still land lightly upon the earth and quietly appreciate the supreme beauty of life. From Andy's Zihuatanejo to Rumi's field beyond right and wrong, and finally to Tao Yuanming's southern mountain, this spiritual journey across time and space is actually showing us the most beautiful forms of life through the eye of poetic grace. In the concrete jungle of modern society, we are always rushing. As the master psychologist Carl Jung pointed out, we have grown so used to wearing heavy personas, running outward in the endless anxiety of gain and loss. In doing so, we have gradually forgotten the true colors of life and repressed our authentic selves into the shadows. Jung once said, "He who looks out dreams, but he who looks in awakens." These great souls and ancient poems, crossing thousands of years, are actually the guides calling us to look inward. They gently remind us life is never a machine that only values efficiency. It is never a test paper filled with secular goals. Poetic grace is not an escape from reality. It is a gift, the ability to perceive beauty once again and to complete our own awakening. It reminds us that even in a crowded subway, we can still feel the breeze of a vast field in our hearts. Even amidst the trivialities of daily life, we can still look up and catch sight of the sunset over the southern mountain. When you look inward through this eye and re-examine the world, you will find that even the most ordinary days hold endless healing and warmth. So, love your life, even if it isn't perfect, and love yourself. Strip away the secular mask and embrace that defenseless and authentic, free and beautiful soul. Now, I ask you, when was the last time you truly felt the beauty of life? Was it a ray of sunset shining into your room, or a gentle breeze on your way home? Share your poetic moments with me in the comments, or simply leave the words, "Awaken inward and love myself," as a witness to your soul's transformation today. The journey to discover the beauty of life is just beginning. Subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.